It began as many terrifying revelations do, not with thunder or explosions, but with silence. Late one night, deep beneath the border between France and Switzerland, in a massive underground ring where particles collide faster than the eye can blink, a group of scientists sat frozen in front of their monitors. The only sounds were the soft hum of machines, the low muttering of data analysts, and the quiet pulse of the universe whispering something new. Something no one could explain. For a long time they stared, blinking at the same strange readings. Numbers that shouldn't have existed. Energy that disappeared without a trace. And something else. An anomaly that twisted their understanding of reality itself. What happened in that moment would change everything. Because what those researchers discovered, what they witnessed firsthand, wasn't just a particle. It wasn't just a glitch. It was a message written not in words but in the very language of the universe. And now they had no choice but to speak about it. CERN, the European Organization for Nuclear Research, had stayed quiet for weeks. Behind sealed doors and secure networks, physicists reran tests in secret, debated with trembling voices, and tried to convince themselves it was all a mistake. But it wasn't. The data was real. The anomaly was real. And what it revealed was chilling. It started small, fleeting, almost laughably insignificant. A strange flicker of something the machines couldn't quite pin down, appearing for the briefest moment during particle collisions inside the Large Hadron Collider. At first it was ignored, labeled statistical noise, a glitch in the data stream, but it kept showing up, again and again. And then came the pattern, one that didn't belong to anything we've ever known. Not gravity, not electromagnetism, not the nuclear forces. It moved differently. It behaved differently. And with that, the silence broke. They called it X17b. To the outside world, it was just a cold designation, letters and numbers, meaningless to most. But to those who had seen what it could do, the name carried weight. X17b didn't just interact with matter. It brushed against something invisible, like a hand pressing against a wall we didn't know existed. A wall that separated us from something else. And that's when the fear set in. Because X17b didn't follow the rules. It didn't behave like anything the standard model of physics could predict. It was, by all accounts, impossible. Yet there it was, appearing in repeated collisions, revealing a signature no one had ever seen before. It wasn't supposed to be there, but it was. And each time it emerged, it brought with it more questions, more confusion, and a sense of something larger looming just beyond reach. One night, a senior physicist, someone who had spent decades unraveling the mysteries of subatomic particles, stood in front of a monitor, silent. His hands trembled slightly. Not from age, not from fatigue, but from something else. Awe, dread. Because the data they were looking at no longer pointed to the universe they thought they understood. It pointed to something far older, far stranger, and possibly far more dangerous. In a secure conference room, behind lead-lined walls and layers of digital security, the scientists gathered to compare notes. What they uncovered was more than just a new particle. It was a behavior, a decay pattern, unlike anything they had seen. Particles that should have left energy behind, vanished without a trace. No radiation, no heat, no sound. Just gone. They called them null events, a term that echoed through the lab like a ghost. These were moments where reality bent just enough to let something slip through. Moments when energy didn't vanish, it escaped. But where did it go? No one could answer that. Not yet. But the theories, they were terrifying. Some whispered of parallel dimensions. Not science fiction, not theory, but something real, something measurable. A space layered next to ours, invisible, untouchable, until now. Others believed X17b might be a key, a bridge, a ripple in the fabric that separates us from something vast and hidden, a hidden sector, a shadow framework of matter and energy that has been alongside us all along, watching, waiting. And still others dared to ask, what if this particle didn't come from us at all? That question haunted them. What if X-17b wasn't born here? What if it didn't emerge naturally from the swirling chaos of our particle collisions, but was something older, planted, preserved, waiting? Some of the researchers, those brave enough to voice what others only feared, began to speculate that this particle might have existed long before us, that it might have been present in the first seconds after the Big Bang, before time had even settled into its rhythm, before matter took shape, before light had a name. There was something unnatural about its precision, how it appeared only under exact conditions, as if it had been hidden deliberately, waiting for minds evolved enough to find it. And if that's true, then maybe, just maybe, it was never meant to be found. Maybe we've opened a door that should have stayed closed. CERN's team didn't want to believe that. They clung to the math, to the charts, to the simulations, but the truth was undeniable. The X-17b particle wasn't just new, it was wrong. Its presence shattered the symmetry of known physics, like a crack running through a perfect pane of glass. Its decay pathways didn't line up, its interactions didn't add up, and worst of all, it didn't always leave a trace. It came and went as if choosing when to appear. Some of the younger physicists began calling it the ghost particle, a presence that flickered in and out of the world we know, as if it didn't fully belong, as if it was bleeding in from somewhere else. And that's when things got darker. In one particularly high-energy collision, something different happened. Not just the usual anomaly. This time, the sensors recorded a burst of information, something like a signature, but it wasn't in any known format. It wasn't data, at least not how we understand it. It was almost like a pattern, like a message. No language, no code, but something structured, something intelligent. They never spoke of it publicly, but behind closed doors, theories were drafted, notes were passed, late-night arguments broke out. What if the X-17b wasn't just a particle? What if it was communication, a signal wrapped in physics, only visible to those capable of unlocking its conditions? Not a beacon, not a warning, but a kind of breadcrumb, a piece of something far more vast and ancient. Because deep in the LHC's memory banks, that structured event kept showing up again and again. Small changes, subtle shifts, like a sequence evolving each time they ran the experiment, like it was learning or reacting. That's when the philosophical debates began. Some saw wonder in it, hope, the possibility that we are not alone, that something out there might be reaching across reality, trying to teach us, connect with us, lift us into the next phase of understanding. But others weren't so sure. They saw danger, a trap, a cosmic curiosity we weren't meant to have. After all, how often in history has discovery led to destruction? The implications spiraled beyond physics. Across the globe, thinkers in neuroscience, theology, and cosmology were pulled into the conversation. What does it mean if there is another layer to reality, interwoven with our own? What if the universe we see is just the surface, just the skin of something deeper? Some even began asking the unaskable, whether consciousness itself might be tied to this hidden world, whether what we call the soul is just another frequency we haven't yet learned to detect. It sounded insane. But then again, so did quantum mechanics once. Back inside CERN, the atmosphere had changed. What was once the thrill of discovery had turned into something quieter, heavier. There were no celebrations, no champagne, only questions, only the weight of responsibility. Because now they knew, they hadn't just found something new. They'd torn a corner of the universe, just a little, just enough to peek through. And on the other side, something had moved. In the days that followed, a quiet kind of obsession took hold. No one at CERN went home early. The labs were never empty. Faces once lit with the excitement of progress now carried the haunted calm of people who had seen too much. The world outside carried on as if nothing had changed. But inside that 17-mile ring of concrete and steel, reality had bent just enough to remind us how little we truly understand. The particle, X-17b, was no longer just a scientific curiosity. It had become a symbol, a threshold, a line between what is known and what should never be touched. The scientists weren't sleeping much anymore. How could they? Every run of the collider brought with it new questions, new anomalies, new signs that the universe was not what we thought it was. And then came the whispers, not from the particle, not from any machine, but from the people themselves. Rumors spread about something the detectors had picked up late one night, a spike in data so massive and so strange that it caused several instruments to shut down mid-collision. Some said it was a systems error. Others weren't so sure. One researcher, pale and shaking, swore she saw a mirror event, as if for the briefest moment something had looked back. Whatever it was, the data was pulled from the servers and locked away under restricted clearance. And that's when the upgrades began. New detectors, new algorithms, new collaborations with space agencies and military tech developers. People who had once dismissed the LHC as theoretical playground now scrambled to get involved. Funding poured in. Diplomatic channels buzzed with quiet urgency. Something had shifted. The world's most powerful nations suddenly wanted to know everything about this particle. Not just what it was, but what it could do. Because now the question wasn't just, what have we found? It was, what can we make from it? That's the part no one wants to talk about, not in public. But it hangs in the air like static. The possibility of technologies born from this particle, from its strange connection to unknown forces, propulsion systems that don't obey Newton, communications that leap across space in an instant, energy drawn not from the atom, but from the void between dimensions. But for every leap of possibility, there is danger. Because if we don't understand it, if we don't know the rules of this new physics, how can we control it? A single experiment, a single misstep, could cause something we can't undo. And maybe, just maybe, it already has. There's a chill now among those who once burned with the passion of discovery, a silence in their eyes. They still chase the data, still run the simulations, but deep down, something else drives them, a need to understand what they've awakened, a fear that if they don't, someone else will, and use it recklessly. And in all of this, there is a deeper, more unsettling thought, one that creeps in during the late hours when the corridors fall quiet and the machines sleep. What if this isn't the beginning? What if we've just rediscovered something? Something ancient, something lost? What if X-17b isn't new, but old? Older than stars, older than matter. A buried code in the bedrock of the cosmos, waiting to be uncovered not by accident, but by design? That would mean we're not just observers of the universe. We're participants in a story far greater than we imagine. A story written in quirks and time, in gravity and light, where each generation of minds is handed one key. And this particle is ours. But with that key comes a choice. To unlock a door that leads to knowledge, transformation, maybe even salvation, or to chaos, collapse, and things we were never meant to touch. So now the world waits. The next experiments are already scheduled. The detectors are being calibrated. And deep beneath the surface of the Earth, inside a ring that hums with power and silence, the universe is ready to answer. The question is, are we ready to ask?